Welcome to another edition of Talking Hoops, guys. We had a fun game yesterday. We were at the villa-angela-st-Joseph and st-Vincent-St-Mary game. Tim, we'll start with you. First question, obviously. What's your biggest takeaway from that game? The Irish looked really, really good.
Yeah, they did, and I made a note of it in my sidebar from the game yesterday that I thought, their tempo and pace, especially right from the start, was too much for VHJ the whole night. And what it showed to me in that game was I think the Irish pretty much are bar none the best team possibly in the state of Ohio, and anything short of a state championship, regardless who they go up against, would be kind of stunning in a way. And that's no disrespect to any of the other teams in Division II, like your Dane Dunbars, your Franklins of the world, the teams out in the Northwest. But I think St. V's just on another level right now, and they pretty much showed it yesterday.
All right, Dave?
I agree with all of that, and I think what really stuck out to me, though, was Henry Badley. He's really evolved into being that go-to wing player that they can rely on for what it seems like at least 20 points a game. I saw him on Tuesday against Walsh Jesuit, and I saw him on Sunday against villa-angela-st-Joseph, and he was the best player on the court both nights, and he's really not only filling a void that Jalen Hudson and VJ King left this team, but perhaps, even looking a little better at times.
He was great on the defensive end, too, really contesting down low against, obviously, Pardon and Bragg. Another team with a big win this weekend was Cleveland Central Catholic. They got off to a quick start against St. Edward and really held on the rest of the way. Eagles had a chance to tie at the end but didn't do it. Dave, what do you kind of take out of that game, and how big a win was that for a CCC team looking for that win?
I think it's huge. I think that this team was a little down after losing so badly to Huber Heights Wayne last week, and then they came back and they get this huge win over St. Edward. And I think Central Catholic is right there in Division II. I think we'll talk about this a lot as the season moves towards the postseason, but March 21st, regional final, St-Vincent-St-Mary and Cleveland Central Catholic. I think that's the de facto state title game.
All right, Tim?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go along with what Dave said about statement victories. I've been talking for a long time about, how I feel like teams need to make those statement wins, and especially this time of the year with the sectional tournaments starting in a week, how it's important to get those wins for Central Catholic. I think this is obviously another step in the right direction. They got some quality wins. For example, they've beaten Bedford earlier this season, so they've definitely got quality wins. And like you said, Dave, if there's a team that's going to stop St. V from getting Columbus, Central Catholic is that team.
All right, guys, obviously last week of the regular season, but there's still a ton of games out there that are very interesting. Tim, what game kind of sticks out to you?
I'm going to look at Tuesday night, Lorain and Bedford, the sequel of, probably what I'd still say is the best game of the year with Lorain and Bedford, just pretty much that tug of war in the fourth quarter. I think Bedford's going to come out very motivated because I think that's the best chance for Lorain's undefeated season to stop, and I think we'll talk about that later. But, there's the LEL rivalry factor. I think if Lorain wins, they pretty much all but clinch the LEL outright with the win. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes, but I think, both teams definitely going to put, their tremendous effort out there once again.
All right, Dave?
I agree that's a really big game, and in terms of immediate implications, I think that's the game that you have to keep an eye on. But for me, it's villa-angela-st-Joseph and Central Catholic on Friday night. The Ironmen will be hosting, and I think it's a chance to see just how good the CCC team is. Right now, they just beat St. Edward. Can they beat villa-angela-st-Joseph? Can they look better than VSJ did, when they played St-Vincent-St-Mary? I think we're going to learn a lot about where both VSJ and CCC are at that point, and it's going to be an exciting night.
All right, 1 week to go until the playoffs start. Tim, David, what's the team, Tim, start with you. What's the team that really could increase their, maybe gain some momentum going into the playoffs?
I'm going to go a little off the radar from some of the teams we talk about. I'm going to go with Brunswick in this case because with their schedule, the way they wrap up with Mentor and Shaker Heights, back-to-back games to finish out the season in the unforgiving NOC Valley Division. The last year of that division was kind of disappointing because last year we've seen those teams just beat each other up. But Brunswick, it's a team that's been a little up and down. They've gotten some nice wins. Their only losses are like really good teams. They don't really have a bad loss, but I think this week they at least need to split to really create some momentum because you look ahead, they could potentially match up with Lorain in a district semifinal if they manage to pull off an upset. Potentially St. Ignatius in a district final down in Mid. It's going to be a very tough road for them.
All right, Dave?
Yeah, I agree that Brunswick has a lot in front of them, and they're a talented team. For me, it's Warrensville Heights. They're a team that just has never gotten that big win all year. They have one final chance this Thursday against Lorain. Who knows? Lorain might be 21-0 coming in. And I think if Warrensville Heights can have any chance to knock off VSJ in the districts, that they need to win that game.
Yeah, definitely. They were able to get a couple of those wins last year. They've been close this year, just haven't done it. And there's 3 undefeated teams remaining. You have Lorain, Green, and St. Vincent-St. Mary. one of those teams were to slip up this week, which do you think it may be?
I think we talked about it a little already, but it might be Lorain. They do play at Bedford and at Warrensville Heights. St. V has North Canton Hoover and Canton McKinley. Both are a little down this year. Green plays Firestone and Cloverleaf. So Lorain's obviously got the toughest road, but Green has really been playing some close games regardless, so maybe they'll fall.
All right, Tim, any disagreement there?
Not at all. I pretty much agree with Dave 100%. I feel like, Lorain's got the two toughest games. I don't see St. V losing potentially even until they get to Columbus. Green is a little interesting because twice we saw this week, just a lot of close calls. They had to go to overtime to beat Copley. They were trailing in the fourth quarter against Revere on Friday night. So they've had a couple close calls. It's kind of understandable. They've already clinched the Suburban League. They've already clinched, the number 2 seed in the district. There's nothing to play for pretty much outside of the perfect season. So you can understand maybe, they're not completing a game, which is understandable, especially, like I said, you don't potentially have a lot to play for, but I think they'll finish undefeated. Lorain does have the two biggest tests. It won't be surprising either way if they go undefeated or if they drop one of these two games.
All right, and then another team we're going to talk about, Mentor. Obviously, this is a team that's been kind of up and down this year, but they got their full roster back, and against Strongsville, they scored 95 points. Dave, when you look at Mentor, what kind of challenges can they present teams, and what's kind of the potential you think for this team?
I think they're a really dangerous team. I'd never count out Mentor. And I think the way everything broke in the seeding and the brackets, I think they have a nice draw. They'll have to get by Warren G. Harding, which is a good team. But then in the district final, they would potentially have to play Shaker Heights, who they've already played twice this year, beat them once, played a really close game the second time, and I think that's a draw they have to like.
All right, and yeah, for you, Tim, we've seen them at their best in the Dunk for Diabetes Classic where they're hitting a lot of three-pointers, or Scholastic play-by-play, excuse me. Mm-hmm. When Mentor's on top of their game, they can really beat anybody, can't they?
No doubt about it, and I think, it's one of those weird years where you call Mentor a sleeper, but that's just how they were seeded. They were seeded 7th in their district, which was kind of surprising they were that low. But honestly, when you look at that district they're in, they probably have the best chance to stop Shaker from getting into the regional round. I feel like they're the biggest threat to Shaker Heights because they've played twice this year. Neither time, I don't think either game Mentor's been fully healthy. And they won 1-1, and each game came down to a last possession, last second shot. So, I think if you're Shaker Heights, Mentor is the absolute last team you want to see in that district final.
Should be an exciting time. And now we're actually joined by Mentor head basketball coach, Bob-Krizancic. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well, just out of practice.
Coach, obviously the playoffs are very near. When you look at the end of this last week of the regular season with practices and stuff, what are you trying to get your team, the mindset and just stuff going into the playoffs?
We're trying to get healthy because it's been a while. And, with our schedule, I think you're going to have to play 2 out of 3 days. At the state, you'd have to play back-to-back regionals, 2 out of 4 days, 2 really good teams. We've kind of set our schedule up with the back-to-back-to-back in Tennessee, the Joe's weekend, 2 tough games. This week we'll have 3. We'll go Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday in Brunswick and Medina. So number one, we try to set up our February schedule where we're ready to go into the tournament. And right now, we just want to, I think most important is that our basketball IQ is at its highest. And, we're not going to beat ourselves.
Coach, I know that you guys are really comfortable at Euclid, but you chose to go to Solon this year for the playoffs. Was that a really tough decision for you to give up where you're comfortable?
No. We weren't worried about where we were going to play. We actually feel really comfortable playing Shaker. We've had some really great games the last couple of years. We split the last 4 games. We played them. And the 2 that we played this year, we win there without Joey Zog. And without our point guard, we lose by 1 and have 2 chances. So, you never know what's going to happen if you get that opportunity to play them in the district finals. But that's going going in, you have a philosophy and a preference. And ours was to probably go at Shaker.
Coach, when you mentioned your team, you mentioned health. You guys just recently got Andrew Valeri back from injury on Friday night. When he's healthy, what does he add to your lineup?
He gives us that legitimate point guard. He creates a lot of things for us. He does some things defensively with his quickness. And that's where you're deeper. Andrew's 25 to 30 minutes were taken by younger kids, and, that's tough to put them in big game situations. So, if I was a point guard my whole life, I would pick a point guard, and I think in high school basketball, that is the key position. So we went 7 games without him, and, it's really good to have him back. So, I don't mind losing. I mean, you never like to lose, but if we're healthy, then there's no complaints, and I think we'll be healthy going into the tournament.
All right, Coach. Last year, Micah Potter was a sophomore. He was kind of learning the varsity game with the senior guards. This year, he's obviously had to take on more of the scoring role. How has he improved from last year into the player he is now?
Yeah, it's funny. Brandon Fritz, which was basically a 2-year starter for a sophomore, junior, leaves for North Carolina and doesn't play, and that gave us a big void last year. But what it did is gave Micah a great chance of playing, starting a lot of games. So the absence of Brandon hurt us, but Micah's experience last year really helped him. And this year, I think he's improved every game. Maturity, athletically, I think he just got offered by North Carolina State. Clemson and Boston College will be in this week. Ohio State's talking. So I think he's not there yet, believe me, but I think he will be. His work ethic's improved. His leadership's improved. He's had some huge games in the 30s, and I think he's a legitimate 25-15 guy. He's got to stay out of foul trouble, but healthy, he gives us, and he shoots the threes really well. I mean, he's about 40% this year. So I think he's becoming definitely one of the better big men in the state. We're shooting for really big time for him, but he's really, really getting better and better every day.
Coach, when you look at your teams, you always have such great shooters. Is that something that you look at and try to pick out players when you're formulating your roster, or is there something that you do as a coaching staff to help develop the shooters?
We have a great feeder system. I mean, our 7th and 8th grade and our 9th grade do exactly what we do. They know exactly when they come into middle school and definitely 9th grade, high school. If you're a guard, you got to be able to shoot the three. You got to be able to create. And, we try to develop more than just shooters. Shooters are great, but you've got to get open and you've got to create for your teammates. So, we want the all-around guard, the one that can defend, not turn the ball over, shoot the basketball, penetrate. And I think the string of guards, we have 7 players, majority of guards playing in college right now, and they come back in and work with our guys. And, we've had a great string over the years of putting guards at the D3, D2 level. Michael played D1, Adam A was D1, but that whole scenario really, I think, helps the philosophy and helps us to develop really solid guards.
Coach, when you look at this week, this is the last regular season week. We'll see the Northeast Ohio Conference as it is. Obviously, some of you guys in the Valley Division are going to stay together. You guys, Shaker, Medina, Brunswick, among others. In a way, is it sad to see this conference kind of break up? And in other ways, it's good to see some of those teams at the division, stay together still.
It's a great conference. I would put it up against anybody in the state. The last couple of years, and you guys, I heard a little bit of your conversation. You're going through the NOC, especially the last couple weeks, really prepares you for the tournament. And it's a shame we did have to break up, but I think it'll be a solid, 18 league. And naturally, you want the best team, the best league in the state of Ohio. And I hope we stay and we get to that point. And some of the other programs, I think when you play Shaker, you play us, you play Medina, Brunswick. That definitely, your mentality, your skill level, everything goes up. So, we'll hope the new DCC is as good as the NOC. And when I came in, the Lake Erie League was just loaded and had some great coaches with Pat and Watson, Pat and Stavoli. So I'm used to being in a great league, and we're just going to, keep that mentality.
Coach, last question. Earlier this season, you had a crazy game against Willoughby South where a kid hit a half-court buzzer beater. Had you ever been part of anything like that before, and would you do anything differently in that situation again?
I was at Girard. We lost a 4-overtime game on about a 35-40 footer. kind of similar, but that one hurt a lot more in double OT in a district final game. And it's funny, 3 years later, we kind of hit one of those, and then we go on and win the state of Girard. But you would do something different. I think we have a couple bigs. We put one on a ball so they wouldn't be able to see the vision. We got burned on that one time against Hardy. But you always do something different. And I think that's the really good thing about coaching and even playing in those games, that if you get in that situation again, you had the experience. You're probably a little calmer in making decisions as a player too. That's just a tough loss. I mean, it was a great look. That was the problem that we gave with 2 seconds not being hit. The half-court shot, it was a great look, and we've got to defend better. So that's all coaching, and I'll get better on coaching those. But those always help you in the future.
All right, Coach, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck the rest of this week and then in the playoffs.
You guys do a great job. Appreciate everything. Take care.
Thanks, Coach. Obviously, you can tell he's excited about his team. He likes, now that they're healthy, he really likes the potential. But the thing that kind of stuck out is he said Potter could be a 25-15 type of player. That's pretty big time.
Yeah, I mean, when I've seen him a couple times this year, and he always sticks out to me. He's right about the foul trouble. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. But when you're the biggest guy in the court, you got to be comfortable being in that position, always having to defend the biggest guy. You see, like a guy like Jabri Blunt is good at that on st-Vincent-st-Mary. He knows he's the biggest, and he can defend. And I think once he gets into a college program and he is with some other bigs, I think he's just going to flourish. He's a special player.
Very skilled for a guy his size, for sure. All right, and now let's go talk about the top 25. Obviously, there were a little bit of changes this week, more opportunities this week as well, with some very interesting matchups. But at that top 5, Dave, what's kind of the difference this week?
It's Lorain. Lorain's up to number 4. For those who have said we're a little slow getting them up there, they are up number 4 right now. They're 20-0. They deserve it after St. Edward and Shaker Heights both lost this week, although both lost in close games. And now it's up to Lorain. They got 2 tough games this week. If they want to stay up there, they win those games, and they deserve it.
Absolutely going to earn it this week, Tim, potentially with those 2 games. When you look at maybe the middle of the pack in the top 25 or even the 20 to 25, what's different this week?
Well, I mean, we got a couple new entries this week. We saw Beechwood enter the picture again. They've been kind of in and out at the bottom. Elyria makes its return. They've been on a nice run. And Blake Furcron, I think, has quickly emerged in one of the better, scorers of the recent weeks in Lorain County. He's put up some gigantic numbers. It's been fun to see him put up to score, throughout the last few weeks. I think Elyria is one of those sleeper teams, that's they play good defensively. They got great athletes, and I think, they're going to give some teams problems in the playoffs. They really do.
And I think you're kind of stealing one of our colleagues' tweets. I was just going to ask you, Dave, you said that you think Elyria could be a sleeper team maybe to make a run. Why is that?
I just think they're coming together right now at the right time. They've got that one dynamic player in Blake Furcron, and when you look at their draw, it's they're at the bottom end of the Brecksville district, and they play Westlake, Rhodes plays Midview. I don't think there's any clear, out of all 4 of those teams, there's not just a team that sticks out. So you think they've got a possible path to the district semifinal. Berea Mid-Park, they seem to match up well against them, and then it's, can they beat Ed? So I think Elyria is maybe this year's Euclid, who went on a big run last year.
All right, and then before we wrap up the show, let's talk about this weekend's games, obviously, or this week's games, Tuesday. Tim, Lorain, you said, the first test this week. What do you kind of expect in that matchup?
I'm expecting, Bedford to come out a little angry, come out with a little more intensity. It's a home game for them. I think they probably still may have a couple emotions after letting that one to Lorain get away. They were up by 7 with 1:15 to go, and then it just kind of turned around from there into, I still say, one of the best finishes I've seen in a long time, the best game of the year. I think Bedford's going to come out with a lot of emotion, a lot of intensity. And this will be, I think, Lorain's toughest test of the season. All
right, Dave, and Lorain wins if?
I think Lorain wins if they start well. We've been, especially the last couple games that I've been to, it's been big-time matchups, and the home team comes out a little flat. I don't know if they have too much emotion or too much energy, and you just worry, how is Bedford going to come out? Like, this game probably means more to Bedford than it does to Lorain just because of the way the last one finished. So if Lorain starts off quick, they might be able to win this game by double digits.
I think that's a great point. It started when I went to Shaker Heights, St. Edward. St. Edward was down most of the game, and as you said yesterday, villa-angela-st-Joseph just missed some easy shots at the rim where I think nerves definitely played a huge factor in that. So Guys, last week of the regular season. Next week when we're here, we'll be previewing playoff games. So definitely a lot of fun in store. So for Tim Bielik and David Cassillo, I'm Mark-Kern. Stay tuned to cleveland.com. We'll have our high school boys basketball podcast on Wednesday.